There, just a whisper of a shaving left, then she'll slide home like a secret.
Tiger, are you sweet talking that piece of timber again? We're supposed to be starting the show.
Well, Alex, when you're dealing with a Japanese scarf joint, you can't just muscle it. You have to treat it like a nervous cat. If you rush it, it'll bite you. I spent 3 hours this morning just getting the layout lines on this Kanawatsugi to actually behave.
All right, settle in, everyone. Today on Tiger Den, we are diving deep into the world of Japanese joinery. It's that beautiful, brain-twisting art where wood locks into wood without a single screw, nail, or, heaven forbid, a glob of wood glue to hide the crimes. Tiger, for the uninitiated. Why do people put themselves through this? I've seen you look more stressed over a three-way miter than when you accidentally backed the truck into the shop door.
It's a different kind of stress, Alex. It's the stress of precision. In modern construction, we use metal brackets and screws because they're fast. But the Japanese masters, the daiku, they were playing a much longer game. They were building temples that had to survive earthquakes and centuries of rot. When you lock wood together using its own grain and geometry, the joint actually breathes. It moves with the seasons. It's not just a connection, it's a living thing. Plus, let's be honest, there's a certain ego boost when you slide two pieces together and the seam simply vanishes. It feels like you've performed a magic trick that defies physics.
It definitely looks like sorcery, but I've watched those videos like Dorian Brocht or Yasuhiro where they're cutting these internal mortises that you can't even see. It's intimidating. For someone sitting in a garage with a basic set of chisels and a circular saw, is this even accessible? Or do we need to move to a mountain in Kyoto and apprentice for 20 years?
Well, the apprenticeship helps if you've got the time. But no, look, I used to think you needed a mystical connection to the forest to do this. But then I realized it's just high-stakes geometry. Take it from a guy who once cut a dovetail on the wrong side of the line and tried to disguise it with sawdust and epoxy, which, by the way, looks exactly like a mistake covered in sawdust and epoxy. The secret isn't in the mystery, it's in the layout.
You mentioned the layout. I saw an article about Andrew Hunter using something called a story stick for a half-blind, tenoned scarf joint. What's the deal there? Why not just use a tape measure?
Because tape measures are liars, Alex. Your tape measure might be a hair off from mine, or you might misread a millimeter when you're tired. A story stick is a single piece of scrap wood where you mark every single dimension of the joint. You use that stick to transfer the marks to both pieces of wood. It ensures that even if you're off by a fraction, you're off by the exact same fraction on both sides. It's the only way to get those interlocking sashimono pieces to fit. If you trust a ruler over your own eyes and a story stick, you're going to end up with a joint that rattles like a box of rocks.
Okay, let's talk tools. If someone wants to try this, do they need to throw away their Western saws and buy those pull saws everyone raves about?
You don't have to, but trying to cut a delicate Japanese joint with a standard Western push saw is like trying to perform heart surgery with a bread knife. The Japanese Ryoba saw cuts on the pull stroke. Because the blade is under tension while you're cutting, it can be incredibly thin. That means a thinner kerf, less wood removed, and a lot more control. When I first switched, I kept pushing because of 20 years of habit, and I buckled the blade immediately. I had to take a long walk around the yard after that one. You have to let the tool do the work. It's a literal pull toward precision.
And the chisels? I've seen those hollow ground Japanese chisels. They look like they could shave a gnat.
They're essentially surgical instruments with wooden handles. The hollow back, the URA, makes it easier to keep the face flat when you're sharpening. And you will be sharpening. If you aren't spending a good chunk of your shop time at the sharpening stones, you aren't doing Japanese joinery. You're just bruising wood. When your tool is truly Japanese joinery sharp, it doesn't make a scraping sound. It sounds like a hot knife through silk.
I want to touch on the modern applications part of this. We aren't all building pagodas. Is this just for showy furniture, or is there a practical reason to use a Kanawatsugi scarf joint in 2024?
It's surprisingly practical if you hate waste. Think about this. You have two 8-foot beams of beautiful, expensive walnut, but you need a 14-foot span for a dining table base. Usually, you'd have to buy a massive, expensive timber. But with a proper scarf joint, you can marry those two shorter pieces into one continuous structural beam that's actually stronger in some ways because of the mechanical lock. It's about being a good steward of the material. And honestly, in a world of flat pack furniture held together by cam locks and prayers, There is something deeply satisfying about a table that stays together because the wood itself refuses to let go.
Held together by prayers. I've lived in that apartment, Tiger. But let's get real for a second. What's the biggest shop disaster you've had trying to master this? Come on, give the people the gory details.
Oh man, I was trying to build a traditional Japanese toolbox, the kind with the sliding lid. Simple, right? No hinges, just a clever sliding mechanism. I spent 3 days on the joinery. I was feeling so proud of myself, I even started humming. I went to tap the final locking pin in with my mallet, but I hadn't cleared a tiny bit of waste out of the bottom of the mortise. It was just a little pebble of wood. I gave it one confident whack, and because the fit was so tight, the hydraulic pressure of that trapped air and wood split the entire side of the box right down the middle. I just stood there for 10 minutes staring at it. If you'd asked me my name in that moment, I wouldn't have known it.
The confident whack is always where the tragedy starts.
Every single time. It taught me that in this craft, your mallet should be the last thing you reach for. If you have to hammer it, something is wrong. A perfect Japanese joint should go together with the pressure of your palms, maybe a light tap from a scrap block. If you're swinging like you're at a carnival strength test, you've already lost the battle.
So, for the listeners who are currently staring at a pile of pine 2x4s and feeling inspired, where do they start? What's the gateway joint?
Don't start with the hidden three-way miter unless you want to quit woodworking forever. Start with a simple half lap or a basic spurred mortise and tenon. Or better yet, build that Japanese toolbox Andrew Hunter talks about. It uses basic joinery but teaches you the philosophy of the fit. You learn how wood behaves when it's under compression. And use soft wood first. Cedar or even a clear piece of pine. It's more forgiving. If you start with rock-hard maple, you'll be sharpening your chisels every 5 minutes and questioning your life choices.
I like that. Start small, stop hammering so hard, and maybe buy a better saw. What's the big takeaway for today, Tiger? When you look at these intricate joints, the ones that look like a 3D puzzle, what does it actually do for the maker's soul?
It slows you down. We live in a world where everything is click and ship. Woodworking can become like that too, just trying to get to the finish line so we can post a photo. Japanese joinery forces you to be in the room. You can't think about your mortgage or your email when you're paring a tenon to a thousandth of an inch. You're just there with the wood, listening to what it's telling you. It's a form of respect. You're saying to the tree, you grew for 80 years. The least I can do is take 8 hours to make sure this joint lasts another 100.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Even if your joint ends up with a gap big enough to park a truck in, like my first attempt, at least you gave it that time.
And hey, a gap just means you have a place to store your extra sawdust for the next one.
Please don't take his advice on that. Thanks for joining us in the den, everyone. Go out there, sharpen your tools, and try to make 2 pieces of wood act like one.
Just remember, measure with the stick, cut on the pull, and if you hear a crack, well, that's just the wood's way of telling you to start over. Peace.